Hey there, Heather Boyd here, and today I am testing this 15-piece Nik Pro professional watercolor set that I bought on Amazon. The brushes come in this protective cylinder, and when you open it up, you'll see this velour bag inside. And when you open up the bag, you'll see that the brushes are all individually wrapped in plastic. So we have all 15 brushes here, and you'll see the variety. So this one is the liner brush. It has a nice protective cylinder so the brush doesn't get damaged. This is a very handy kind of brush for fine lines. And there's a lot of different size round brushes in the set as well as this cat's tongue brush and then the flat brush as well. So now I'm going to experiment with the cat's tongue brush. I'd never tried this brush before, so I'm going to use the magenta color watercolor paint and just doing little swoops with the brush and a nice wash of color, and we're going to make a rose. I wouldn't be too fussy about the position of the petals. I'm just kind of staggering them, starting from the center and working my way out. And you'll see the technique is you get the paint, you'll hold it by the tip. If you get too much paint, you could remove some, and you're going to push and lift. And it makes a really beautiful petal shape. So that's the technique, push and lift, and it's very easy to get simple effects using this brush and this technique. So we're going to hold it, push down and lift up, just kind of alternating the position, working our way out and making it as big as you like. You'll have to dip it back in the paint as you go around, and it's nice if some areas are darker and some areas are lighter. It gives it a sense of three-dimensionality, and you'll see the rose coming to life. So once you've done the rose, you can get some green paint to do the petals. Same technique, push and lift, just bring it around. And don't worry too much about the shape. Just push and lift and it makes a beautiful petal. You can make them slightly different sizes. You could mix a few different shades of green to give it some variety. And we're just going to work our way down. And we'll put the stem after. So we want to imagine where the stem will be, and then we're going to push and lift. Now from there, we could either use a liner brush or we can use this brush to do the stem. So we're going to start at the top, and then I'm going to get my liner brush to do a finer line for the stem. It's a little thicker at the top. And then I'm going to pull the liner brush along the leaves that are still wet to create a line down the center of the leaves. So this gives it a really lovely, realistic effect. Just pulling that liner brush down. And then up here we could do a little bit more where the flower connects to the stem with a smaller round brush. So we're just going to, again, push and lift, and it makes it thicker at the base and finer as it gets up towards the flower. Now, if you want to fill in those white areas a bit, you can get a lighter shade of pink. It could be a slightly different tint as well for contrast. And we're just going to cover up some of those white areas so it just looks a little bit more full, a little bit more realistic. So you can use your judgment with this to go in and add a little bit of lighter pink. Could be a little bit more orangey pink if you like, or it could be more purpley pink, whatever you like the look of. You just fill it in with a little bit more paint to make it a little bit fuller. You can just go around, add it where you see that it needs it, and then I'm going to add a little bit at the side just to make it a little fuller at the side as well. There's always little additions that you could do to this to make it look as you wish. So I'm just adding little bits more of color, and there's the finished rose. Now I was experimenting making some ferns, so I'm using the round brushes. I have different sizes. This size I'm using right now is the 7 size. So I used some larger and some smaller as well, just to give it a nice variety of size. And you can have some that look like they're further back and some that they look like they're more in the foreground. So now I'm doing some that are going to be appearing to be a little bit more back because they're a little bit smaller. And we'll just go ahead, same type of technique as we did with the rose, but we're using the round brush. So we start with a light touch, and then we just hold the paintbrush, push and lift, and that gives you that really cool leaf shape. So hold it on the paper, push and lift, and try to vary a little bit the direction of your leaves so they're not super straight. You want it to look more organic. So now we've done our leaves on that fern, and then with the liner brush we could just pull down the stem. And you could do little lines in the leaves if you like as well. It's really fun to play around with these. You can just do a sampler page with different ferns. Now we're going to do one over on this side. And you can mix different greens together to get different shades to make it look more natural. So this one I just sped up the speed of the video a little bit just to go through it a little bit faster. And you'll see I have different shades of green. This green has a little bit more yellow in it. We're just going to pull those leaves from the outside in towards the stem. And really, you don't need to worry if they're perfect. We're just going to go quickly, have fun with it, just to get as many leaves in there as you can, and then pull down the liner brush. So now we're going to dry it before we do the next layer, so the leaves are more defined. And then I'm going to go in with a darker green and do another fern that will be more in the foreground. So this one I'm making a little bit bigger. I'm using a bigger brush, and it's going to look like it's closer. The leaves are darker, and we're just going to do the same technique. So start with a light touch, and then you push and lift. Easy. Watercolor is great because there's a lot of very simple techniques you can use to get really effective results. I'll link up a playlist of other watercolor tutorials in the description below the video. So we've done all the leaves now, and then take the liner brush and pull down that stem, and you can touch up with more paint if you need. So then I did a darker one on the other side too, and then now I'm going in with a much smaller round brush to do one in the background. You don't need to fill in all of your white space, but you want it to have a nice kind of composition. So I'm just adding a little fern in the back with a slightly different color. So there's our finished painting with the ferns. And then after that, I just used the round brushes and experimented doing some flowers. So this one I started in the center, and then I'm getting the round brushes and just kind of pushing down the brush to make the petals. So the tip of the brush is towards the outside, the thicker part of the brush is towards the inside, and I'm just kind of pushing. Push and lift the whole brush. So push and lift, and you'll see they make really cool shapes that look like petals. And it's nice the way the watercolor bleeds together to make it look really cool. So now I'm going in starting a little bit more from the outside to do those petals. I sped up the video a bit for this one too. So that's the first step. And then I'm going in with some purple. They did bleed together a little bit. I could have dried it first with the hairdryer to make them more defined, but this really was just a sampler piece to play around with my new brushes. So we're just going to go in, push and lift. So now we're going to go in with a blue and bring the petals around. I definitely could have dried this first because the paints are bleeding together. So have a hairdryer handy so you can blow dry between layers. And then I did some green in the middle.